Hello and welcome to the November Internationals 2017 pre-round predictions. And what do I mean by that? Well, there are a couple of games starting this weekend that are ahead of the international window. So next week, the weekend after, will be round one. So it's a bit like pre-season, as it were. So hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, and thank you very much for joining me. So there are three games that we'll be talking about. Canada versus the Maori All Blacks, Japan versus Australia, and Barbarians versus New Zealand. Now the Maori All Blacks we saw got done over by the Lions earlier this season and really don't get enough games. So they've only got two games in this window. And first up obviously is Canada. And one of the things that's going to be interesting out of this is really the half-back battle. So there's a couple of players in there who will be fighting it out for that third half-back spot in the All Black squad. Yes, the All Blacks have taken a third scrum half up to on their tour, but he is off to Europe at the end of the season. So that space is open up for grabs coming next year, and obviously going into the Rugby World Cup. So that's going to be one position of interest, and obviously there are a lot of other young up-and-coming players in this squad that will be interesting to look at. For Canada, obviously this is an extra game, a good for them, and to be honest, they won't have been together as much as the Maori All Blacks or be as up to speed, I wouldn't have thought. And so there, I think we're going to see the Maori All Blacks win this one by about 10 points or so. The Maori All Blacks had a very good history or very good record, but that sort of stuttered over the last couple of seasons. I think they'll start to rectify that a little bit here. Next up, Australia head up to Japan to get a bit of a taste of what they'll get at the Rugby World Cup in a couple of years' time. And so for them, it's going to be a bit of a reconnaissance mission. They are battle-hardened. I mean, they've had a game pretty much every weekend now for the past couple of months. A couple of rest weekends, obviously, in the Rugby Championship. But they even had a Barbarians knockout last weekend to make sure, so coming into this, that was probably just a money spinner for the ARU. But still, this is outside the window. So it's going to be interesting to see how that sort of pans out from a Japan point of view. I think they have most of their players available because obviously there's Sunwolves and playing in Super Rugby. There's not that many playing over in Europe, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem for them. I think Australia should win this one by 15. So Japan will not be as game hardened, and so I don't expect an upset like we saw against South Africa in the Rugby World Cup or anything like that. Finally, the last game of the weekend is the Barbarians hosting New Zealand at Twickenham. This is a 125 years, I think it is, or commemoration. Anyway, one of those kind of games. New Zealand have left, or the All Blacks have left, several players back in New Zealand. People like players like Kieran Reid and Coles, who have both played quite a bit of rugby or have had sort of head injury issues during the season. In Coles' case, so they. So it's not going to be a full-strength side by any stretch of the imagination. Expect the All Blacks to ring a lot of changes into this one before they head over to France and then play France and then a French 15. So 2 games in a week next week. So expect this. A lot of the players you see here to be playing against that French 15 on. I think it's a Tuesday night or Wednesday night over there. So this is clearly going to be an All Blacks win by about 20 points, I would have thought. Some interesting selections in the Barbarians. Obviously, Julian Surveyor is in there, and he'll be wanting to fight back for into the All Black setup. So there are definitely players who have got plenty of points to make. But being outside the international window, it's hard for them to get players. So it's obviously going to be mainly a Southern Hemisphere lineup there. So it should be a great festival of rugby, but I think 3 pretty much one-sided games, unfortunately, before we get into the real stuff next weekend. Thank you very much for joining me. Please do share this with all your friends and all that kind of stuff. And check out the notes down below for how you can support DrivingMaul and also sign up for my newsletter.